Well, hello, that's me again. Today is December 23, 2024. And what you see in the beginning is just another anti-drone operation, so to speak, and you can consider it air-to-air battle. But Russians obviously manage now this technique, if you wish, of shooting the drones with the drones. And on this particular video, you can see yourself, this is the largest of them, I believe, Baba Yaga, which is called the tactical drone. And well, yeah, they shoot it down using the other drone. And that's one of the ways of kind of improving the tactics, if you wish, including using, of course, the wire-guided drones by Russian armed forces, which, of course, make it, very well protected against the electronic warfare, jamming, if you wish. But I will start with this, and then we'll talk about something even more important. So here is the how to put it. It never ceases to surprise me. Some people say, "Oh, you have the Trump derangement syndrome." No, I don't. I voted for him. I mean, our family voted for him. But here comes this issue with Trump. This is why Russians already, Mr. Peskov went out and said there's no meaning, planned or anything like this. But here it is. What I also made the post about this in my blog, and Trump incorrectly quoted Putin when talking about Ukraine. This is what is this all about. You cannot talk, for example, to Western media too. They will absolutely pervert everything you wanted to say. And so here's Mr. Trump talking to his, just adoring crowd of his, supporters, that Putin said he wanted to meet with as soon as possible. The politician said during a speech at the Turning Point USA conference in Arizona. And immediately, obviously, as already stated, Mr. Peskov said, "What? We never planned anything like this." So, and the statement of the Russian president to which Trump referred actually sounded different. Of course it did. And I already immediately stated that Putin couldn't have said anything like this. This is not how the head of the superpower behaves itself. And that's the quote. "I'm ready for this conversation at any time. I will be ready to meet if he wants it," quote Putin on a direct line combined with a press conference. He noted that if such a meeting takes place, they will have something to talk about. That's it. This is what have been stated. And Vladimir Putin have been on record for the last 3 years non-stop that, yeah, sure, if they want to talk, sure, I'm ready. And that's what has been reiterated by number of the top Russian officials, ranging from Mr. Sergei Lavrov to, well, Medvedev is a little bit on a different, so to speak, path here. But yeah, all kinds of people from the top echelon of Russian political power, they stated that, yeah, Russia is ready to talk. It's just what you're going to bring on the table, and that's the whole other story. So, and here we are, the pattern of the Western political life continues. People BS each other. They actually so drowned by now in lies that, you know what, I don't know if it's even possible to extricate oneself from all this cesspool of BS. I mean, how else can you explain it otherwise? But yeah, perverting the whole meaning of things, the same as many people. And I'm giving you an example. Here it is. I'm sitting here in front of you, and I want to point out that very many people, when I say something about Europe, they say, "Oh, we're not like this. We are, in fact, we support Russia and all that." First, I'm not coming here in my videos to peddle support, for Russia. No. My task is to educate, but very many people do not understand those, fundamental things which I'm saying. For example, like I say always that majority of Europeans, and I usually clarify this, I don't know what is the majority. It could be 52%, but it could be 65 or 80%. But majority of Europeans, they do not like Russian gods. Simple as that. It doesn't mean that 100%. It doesn't mean that Europeans don't have decent people, or they do not have people who are Russophobe, or do not consider Russians as subhumans. But majority does. Simple as that. Now, what is the size of this majority? Please go out there and do your research. But majority of Europe, they hate Russian gods. They hated it for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. Remember, Prince or whatever, Count de Christine, who stated that, scratch the Russian and, you'll see the Tatar. That is not to basically offend Tatar people, with some who are brotherly people for Russians, and very talented people, by the way. It's just the way it is. I mean, for Russians will remain forever, for Europeans, an Asiatic horde, ready to rape and pillage whatever this wonderful Europe. But yeah, let it stay this way. But please don't exercise this, sensibilities that, oh yeah, I'm somehow just do this, broad brush, the generalizations, and no. But majority of Europeans, they think like that. So, but now let's go to the, so to speak, the main subject of the issue. And I am not only on the record, I am non-stop about this whole darn situation with the not special military operation, by some tactical and operational aspects of which, because, and the name of this video post, classified, means, I will tell you what classified is in the West. What is classified in the West is actual, real data which is pouring from the and was pouring from the front lines of Ukraine. And so let me take a look at first, before we go any further, on the such issue as what is happening in the special military operation zone, or the front, if you wish, today and yesterday. We will start with this situation. So there is a very interesting move by Russians, which is, I take it for whatever it is, I mean, and, interpret any way you want. You see this, yesterday, Russians broke into the, well, not broke really, they took their positions near the Antonov Bridge, which is the bridge to Kherson. It is the only bridge which was stayed. And as you might remember, when in 2022, in the end, when the Russians evacuated the Kherson together with most of its population, they went over this bridge and then blew it up. Now, the question remains now, why did they do this? Is there any way, engineering-wise, so to speak, to restore this bridge or do something about it? Well, we will soon see. But what is known, for example, in the last 2 weeks, there was a hell on the ground in Kherson, and so something is cooking on the southern flank of Russian front, and well, we'll see what is going on. Now, we have obviously the situation with the what is happening in the south in general, as you can see yourself, and what is called Vremeyev, well, it's protrusion. There is a, as you can see yourself to the left lower corner, yeah, there is a huge mop-up operation. There is a mop-up operation in Kurakhova, and you see yourself a lovely cauldron forming for some hapless guys who will be killed if they do not surrender. So, Russian front moves, and moves, well, non-stop. And before we go any further, so I want to stress this thing. And that relates, I mean, directly to what I'm about to say. We have Mr. Sullivan. Well, Mr. Sullivan is a lawyer. He is a boy who never encountered anything in his life, but suddenly, yesterday, he comes out and begins to pretend that he, for some reason, understands warfare, geopolitics. He does not. Believe me, neither Blinken nor him. These are the people who, first, Sullivan is the author of Russiagate. and he is the author of this catastrophe, cluster coitus, which is happening with whatever remains of Ukraine. So, and he stated, speaking in the, whatever the gathering was there, the CNN International, when I started in my current position, I noticed that the American defense industrial base was incredibly weakened. We have not produced the munitions, submarines, warships, or technologies that we need to effectively deter and project power in the world. I was surprised at how difficult it is to break through the various obstacles to put our defense industrial base on the path of recovery in the long term. First, not only he was surprised, even today, I can bet you that he has no clue how to deal with this issue. Well, because he is a lawyer. Nothing wrong with lawyers. It's just that he is not really national security advisor. He is the worm, apparatchik, who kind of made a career out of, pretending BS, So he talks about Mr. Trump to return us to necessary level. Now, so I don't know what necessary level is, and I don't think so Trump will be able to do anything about it. And I am on the record, you can quote me, that United States lost the arms race, and in some segments of this arms race, it will never close the gap again. And here he talks about that about this budget of the Pentagon, given its huge size, and there's obviously, we know it's corrupt, all of it, and there is a reason why Eisenhower was calling it military-industrial congressional complex. Now you have to add media complex, and voila. But what is most important about this Sullivan thing is not just the fact that he obviously BSs as always, and he has absolutely zero toolkit to grasp anything serious about development of the modern technologies. He has zero, in fact negative, primarily Hollywood education on the modern weapon systems, how they shape their tactical and operational realities, and how it transfers itself onto the strategic level. I don't think so many people in Pentagon understand this, because evidently somebody was very giddy planning this thing in 2022, waiting for Russia to collapse, and and I will do some introspective on this issue, showing what I cannot not say this anymore. And people will say, oh, you always have this corporate, your solidarity with your American colleagues, with Pentagon and U.S. Army and Navy and all that. Yes, I did, but now I don't. I mean, U.S. military is incompetent. Period. Simple as that. And here is the simple demonstration. But before I go to the simple demonstration, let me kind of get you basically harking back to the good old times of 2024, when all those people, all those American veterans, who flew in, Desert Storm and all that, we are talking about how great they are in what is essentially amounts to the SEAD, suppression of the enemy air defense. And so comes now this very important statement, which people have to understand. United States Air Force and United States Armed Forces in general, they do not know what SEAD, real SEAD is, suppression of the enemy air defense. They know it from the Hollywood, and of course beating these guys. Now let me demonstrate to you. We are talking about SEAD as, for example, presented in this paper. This is 1994, as you can see yourself. James Brunels, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force, and he is talking about setting the context of the suppression of enemy air defenses and joint warfighting in an uncertain world. First, again, not only United States doesn't know what real SEAD is, but obviously joint warfighting is such a meme. Really, United States doesn't have the joint warfighting capability, because it is absolutely completely split in services and their commands, and that's the whole other issue with the general staff. We're not gonna go there, but if you want to understand it, I described this in my latest book, The America's Final War, and look what James Brunges, writes about the SEAD as from the precious, triumph, if you wish, of the, suppressing air defense of Iraq, no less than Iraq. Look what he talks about the threat in his, and I deliberately underlined it. And this is just absolutely a threat, most formidable, faced by American military based on capability, numbers, command and control structure, and modernization. This was the first time when I actually had my jaw dropped if they talk about the air defense of Iraq, which was primarily S-25 and S-75 air defense complexes, most of them non-mobile. And you look at this and you ask yourself, really, if that's they call most formidable? So as usually, they begin to talk it up. Countrywide radar warning net consists of multiple Western designed and Soviet radar systems tied together with redundant and hardened command, control, and communications net. Not really. Yeah, they did some, fiber optics cables there, but other than that, so advanced computer technology employed in target tracking, weapons allocation, and sector control. Not really. Again, they were using the primarily obsolete already then the Soviet air defense systems, which Russians, for example, have been removing constantly from their own air defense forces. That's what it was. And and Iraqi never got their hands on something really advanced. And so now he talks about frontline personnel, well-trained, secondary backup echelon, poorly trained. And so, you read this and it's like, really, dudes, are you freaking kidding? And I understand, I will get now a bunch of the, flaming hatred, from people who said that, Arabs were not necessarily that good in air defense. If anybody wants to understand why, you have to take a look who actually manned the Egyptian air defense and Syrian air defense systems in 1973. Obviously, they were Soviets, so were they during the 1982. And but there we go. So, and he talks definition, campaign-based SEAD, use of aircraft to execute SEAD campaign. Aha, this is very interesting. Use all aircraft to execute this whole thing, suppression of air defense campaign. And when you read this, and it's like, Iraqi air defense. It is pretty much the same as Iraqi staff, command and staff structure. It's like, are you serious? No, I mean, nobody says that it wasn't, any kind of threat. But when they talk about it, this being the most formidable, obviously the NATO air forces, and which primarily is the main instrument of the suppression of air defense, enemy air defense, they never encountered anything larger than Yugoslavia or Iraq. And this is the maximum extent of whatever they encountered. So, these are the guys who grew up with what many people, including some officers, and there are many professional officers in the United States armed forces. It's just that they not allowed anywhere near real command and shaping of the doctrine, and let alone operational art. But, and they have been saying, very many of them, that the worst thing which could have happened to the US Army was the so-called victory over Saddam's incompetent, semi-literate army. And this is because it's clouded. Not that it was good before, we all remember Vietnam, but it's completely clouded, thinking of most people related to the American military industrial establishment, and they lived since then, ever since, and never really broke, so to speak, this, or, this bubble in this world of fantasy about warfare, and in this particular case a critical element of the what is called multi-domain operations, which is of course suppression of the enemy air defense. And now, after we read about this formidable threat of the obsolete and generally poorly run the air defense of Iraq, let's take a look at something of the today. So we have the armed forces of Ukraine losses. It's, as you can see yourself, it's December 23, and 1,960 killed, pretty much, almost a million now, just by the most conservative counts by Russian Defense Ministry. But look what we have. Look attentively. We have, you see, SAMs, surface-to-air missile threats, which Russians annihilated. 590 for the total for the special military operation, and this year alone 145. Let me remind you what kind of the air defenses Russians destroyed. Well, they destroyed a bunch of Buk M1 and even Buk M2s. They destroyed S-300s. They destroyed a bulk of the best whatever the NATO could have provided, for example, Ukraine with. And just to demonstrate to you, we have this headline since yesterday. As you can see yourself, in Ukraine, since the beginning of the, well, NMD, for some reason, machine translation does this, special military operation, at least 30 Patriot air defense systems have been destroyed. And so they begin to list, this is from the Russian Defense Ministry. One of the latest and most effective strikes is mentioned in the report for December 15th. Then 4 launchers were destroyed, as well as combat control vehicle and an MPQ-65 radar station. That means it's gone. So, and keep in mind, it's just the Patriots they are talking about. As you can see yourself, they continue to list all those occasions where it was all killed, and 30 basically systems have been destroyed. What does it mean? Well, what it means is that it was $30 billion because each single air defense system, Patriot PAC-3, no less, is $1 billion. So $30 billion just on the whatever the best United States could have provided Ukraine with. Well, guess what? There were other things like NASAMS, all kind of NATO complexes just absolutely annihilated. And that's what's this is the real SEAD. And let me get you back to all those clowns, really. I mean, when you look, for example, at RAND, it's a clownish organization which doesn't do real numbers. And why it is classified all of this? Because these people really bought this BS, which is called Ukrainian statistics. And that tells you that they have no professional qualities to even develop information and to understand the veracity. That means the probability of the, reliability, so to speak, of this information. They don't understand what data sets are, why you have to be very cautious, and why they classified the real numbers, such as 1 to 12 kill ratio between Russians and Ukrainian troops, ground troops. And when you go there, you will see yourself what's happening. So let's start with 2022. Task and purpose, all those guys who just flew against, all those, they didn't fly anything serious against the air-to-air combat in Iraq, and so, and here, as you can see yourself, March 3rd, 2022, they basically repost some BS from some creep from whatever, I don't remember his name, he's from Norway, I believe. It is clear to us that Russia is losing aircraft and helicopters at a damaging rate. Where is the Russian Air Force? Experts break down why they might be hiding. Okay, yeah, that was in 2022. So let's go now and take a look at the RAND. What can I say? Here it is. Here's RAND. It's a clownish organization, and this is, it's already now March 29, 2024. The Russian Air Force is hollowing itself out. Air defenses for Ukraine would speed that up. This is written by some Michael Bornert. He is some kind of the physicist, and he served in the US Air Force. I can tell you, he will not be able to hold conversation with real Air Force professionals, because he basically grew up reading all those fairy tales and watching Tom Cruise movies, Top Gun. So, and he said, the Russian Space Forces of VKS continues to burn through the lifespan of its fighter aircraft in the war against Ukraine. After 2 years of air war, its total force is slightly less than 75% of its pre-war strength. So the guy is, he also swallowed, which you expect from American analysts, hook, line, and sinker this Yuki propaganda. He doesn't understand what is actually Russian industrial capability, and especially in the ramping up the, the whole production of the combat aircraft. Well, and again, this not healthy concentration, so focusing of the on the aircraft and the air forces is a typical, American military thinking, because they, for some reason, the United States still believes that, U.S. Air Force won the World War II. No, I'm not kidding you. There is a school of thought out there. Obviously, they don't understand when the Soviet Union, the Red Air Force, and finished the war in 1944. It was largest and by far tactical operational air force in the world. But don't tell this to these guys and engineers from, all those, U.S. Air Force who work there. They need to cover up the situation that U.S. Air Force is the obsolete Air Force, not designed to fight in the real air defense environment, such as the Russian one. And there's the other thing, which they, for some reason, they believe they know what SEAD is, because Russia, it's not just dominates, it dwarfs American production of the cruise missiles, not to speak about the quality of it. United States simply has not even in the same league, both numbers and qualitatively, with the stand of weapons. It is a fact. And when you talk about SEAD, yeah, United States can hurl in against Iraq or something like that, or Yugoslavia, something like 300 Tomahawks. The problem, of course, yeah, you cannot move those things, the asset which launched that, those Tomahawks, such as the early work class destroyers or submarines of the Virginia class, for example, or for that matter, of the SSGNs, the conversion of the higher class submarines from ballistic missile subs to guided missiles. We're still hurling those Tomahawks, which are obsolete missiles. You still cannot get them in the position because, well, Russians actually have the Air Force, which is, by the way, the best Air Force by far in the world, with their, as you saw yourself, which wiped out, together with the Russian standoff weapons, of hypersonic variety too, ranging from Iskander to Zircon to Kinjal. United States doesn't have anything even comparable. And so there you go. There's SEAD. This is the suppression of the enemy air defense. And when you look at this, you put together, you begin to see the picture which I saw since 2014. A deeply hidden complex of inferiority, because technologically United States fell back so badly that no amount of statements from Mr. Trump or from Mr. Sullivan will save it. Because in order for you to close this gap, you need trillions of dollars in, especially considering the American costs of the developing anything, F-35, for example. And then, of course, considering the fact that what kind of war they want to fight. They will not fight it for a long time because they will be annihilated. They simply have nothing which can stand up to the modern development of the technologies by Russians, which is employed in Ukraine. And now when they ask where the Russian Air Force is, it dominates its supremacy over the air. And this is the basically supremacy in the air over the best ever NATO proxy, which was essentially and still is nothing more than an extension of NATO. And NATO technology was defeated soundly. But then again, if you listen to those people, I mean, you know what, I understand, butthurt and things of this nature. They are very proud people. The problem is their pride is one of the, very serious sins if you consider, consider all things considered. And at some point of time, pride becomes hubris. Complete, and that's what they are. They're hubris, BSers who cannot face the fact that once they classified, and in reality, real information about the operations, including suppression of the enemy air defense, is shown to them, not the garbage which they basically suck on from Kiev regime, then yeah, they look very pale. They look very backward in their both doctrinal and operational thinking. And how could it be differently than that? I mean, it cannot be, because they never faced real enemy in their life. So, but if for those people who understand, oh, how do you know this? Well, you know what, my friends, I already stated many times before that what I do is I do the modeling which is very well known. For example, salvo modeling. I know approximately what Russian air defense is. For example, Mr. Putin already stated on a number of occasions. Obviously, Russians, miss here and there, no doubt about it, and Russians do miss, and they get destroyed, some air defense complex once in a while. But other than that, I know that it's 95% effective across the domain. And so when you look attentively at the salvo model, which gets us into these calculations, which of course very imprecise, but they give you the idea. You can see yourself that salvo model with in the basically model or the paradigm of the missile exchange looks like this. And you can take, you will say why the A, large A, for example, which underscored in red, disappears, and the simplest model, the primitive model, there is a very advanced model, so to speak, or version of the salvo model, and you can see yourself that A is the number of the aircraft, the carriers of the missiles. And if you assume that Russian air defense systems do not shoot those aircraft, they shoot only alpha, which is the number of the well-aimed missiles by the enemy, then you will understand that actually, even when you consider this, the absolute safety of the platforms which NATO puts out against Russian air defense, all comes down to missile exchange. But in reality, of course, because I already showed you the delusions about Russian Air Force by all those fanboys from RAND and or whatever the military porn sites such as Task and Purpose. So it is all about if all aircraft were out of range of Russian air defenses. Of course, which it is not the case, because Russians will be shooting down not only the missiles which are launched at, killing Russian air defense systems or some objects, but obviously shooting down those, carriers, those, planes. And you saw yourself that Russians, if you go back to the armed forces of Ukraine losses, you will see yourself that obviously the planes, there's a 650, well, it's the equivalent of 1.5 size of the French Air Force have been shut down by Russians. In reality, of course, the model is much more complex, and as you can see yourself, I deliberately changed here the ships to missile carriers, which are of course the aircraft, combat aircraft, and as you can see yourself, the model becomes, and this is just one of the pages, there are many of those development of the parameters, tactical and operational parameters, such as, for example, scouting effectiveness, and we know the scouting effectiveness is very good for Ukraine because NATO works 24/7 providing them targeting, including mostly at the civilian targets to kill women and children. This is what they are good at. Then, of course, we talk about training effectiveness. In this particular case, training effectiveness is reduced because Ukrainian Air Force is completely demolished. It's effectiveness of the teams from the, obviously, United States who launch those missiles against Russian targets, such as ATACMS. And so they talk about the destruction countermeasures, and we talk about all kinds of other things which are participating in this model and which provide us with a good assessment of their basic actual military capabilities. And as you saw yourself before that, last video, when they attack their apartment complexes, for example, this is what they do. They are good only at terrorism. They are not good at fighting air-to-air combat. I mean, if there is no plane or pilot today in the US Air Force or any NATO Air Force which will survive more than 1 or 2 missions flying against Russian Air Force and Russian air defense. And if we go further, then we go into basically the territory of Oreshnik and all other things which simply make the assembling of the force impossible. And as a result, well, there you go. And Ukraine obviously was not the Iraqi army. And what can I say? Well, make out of it anything you want. And this is just to conclude today this rather extensive topic, and I'm already running for the 35 minutes. And before I go, when people try to understand what is happening in Russia, and they try to understand what Russia is, here is the statement by Vladimir Putin yesterday, which is critical, which explains everything you need to know about what is happening in Russia today and why it is over between Russia and the West. And Mr. Trump can pretend and lie outright, basically whatever he wants, but reality is, here is Mr. Putin stating, this is the sentence essentially to the last, 1990s and early 2000s. Putin accuses previous Russian leaders of destroying the country, which is absolutely true. Yours truly, who is talking to you right now, we left for the United States because the country we knew and lived in was completely destroyed. And it was actually warm civil war happening there. We almost got killed on a number of occasions. And so Moscow sought to integrate with the West, but the latter worked towards Russia's destruction. The president has said Russia will never again sacrifice its national interest in a bid to improve relations with any other nation or a group of states. And that is simple as that. If Mr. Trump thinks that Mr. Putin is eager to meet him, well, I have news for Mr. Trump. I think so. It's actually the other way around. But then again, who knows who Trump is? I mean, the guy is a showman. So we'll see. Well, as my good friend Garland Nixon stated, that he probably appointed Mr. Rubio as the Secretary of the State to fire him in humiliating manner, and 3 months later. Possible. If that happens, well, sure. But other than that, I don't see competent people so far, with the exception of Tulsi Gabbard and, well, Matt Biondi, or whatever, Pam Biondi, this as Attorney General. These are the, people, well, Kash Patel maybe. So we'll see. But other than that, you cannot reform a U.S. military establishment because it's utterly corrupt organization. And for all glory and heroism of American soldiers, and make no mistake, I also want to stress it that even when those kids went to fight in Afghanistan or Iraq, many of them indeed believed what they were doing. They believed that they were doing some good things. They didn't. But today, obviously, with the whole West essentially disintegrating, you can see yourself there, dawning of the realization. Look up of the numbers of the United Kingdom, so-called British Army. 15,000 just left it last month alone. They just don't want to serve. For what? And for who? And now the technical issue. I have not necessarily bad suggestions. I mean, sometimes I have to speak really fast. If you do not understand what I'm saying, and I understand, I have accent. I have a Russian accent, which you may not understand. Guys, there is a knob in the settings. Slow down. 0.75, I think so you will understand everything I'm trying to convey. And so this is it for today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.